Oh, goody. Hold on. It's the Hack Fraud Show.
Oh no, a podcast.
Yeah.
What is this podcast?
I guess I'll just quickly relate what I told you two already. But I finally met my podcast hero, Darren Franich, last night.
Podcast hero, Darren Franich.
I was at Trivia Night down at Vidiot's in Santa Monica. The final Vidiot's Trivia to be held at that location.
Yes, I heard on the podcast. Aren't they moving more towards downtown, or
probably? I'm not sure exactly. It's gonna take them. They're gonna be closed for like almost a year, while they try and like work things out and find a new location.
Transfer all the shit they got there.
Yeah, but no, it was great. Darren Franich is a great guy with a wit and repartee to match his skill with the keyboard. Not the keyboard instrument, but the keyboard of writing. Read his stuff on Entertainment Weekly. It's great. Anyway.
It's very entertaining.
Yeah. So, let's talk about some movies, shall we? What are the three things you watched this past week, John?
Well, two of them were Italian neorealist films.
Oh.
The one, if we are to do our what we've been watching segment, I watched an obscure Haitian because there's in Europe since the EU came about, it's always like there are three different countries producing things at once, so you'll get these ridiculous credits that are like a German production, a French production, a Belgian production.
Yes, no, I love the opening credits of European films because it's always like the Irish Film Board and Studio Babelsberg and such and all this other shit present.
The continent as a collective creates films there, which is wonderful. It was made by. Have you ever heard? It's the same guy who made I Am Your Negro, which I will be. I Am Not Your Negro, which I will be seeing soon. Raoul Peck.
Oh.
Who was a really interesting like political activist. He was a diplomat for Haiti for a while. He's made some really interesting films. One of his I watched was Lumumba. I think that's how you pronounce it. Which is a French language film about the independence of the Congo from Belgium and the first prime minister of Belgium, of the same name, Lumumba. And it's really fucking interesting because it's kind of got the structure of like a Hollywood biopic where it's like we're going to show you the life of this guy in a really specific point in his life in a really specific event. But it's never like, hey, let's look at the glorious independence of the Congo. Like right from the get-go, you get like the Belgians don't want to take away their institutions. There's like almost instant race riots over like because a lot of the white this is a African country that after independence still had a lot of white officers. They had to get rid of like the white general, and there are all these different factions coming in. There are parts of the country trying to succeed. There's all these internal politics, and you have just the prime minister in the middle of it, just trying to fend all of it off.
Sounds fascinating.
Yeah, it is really fascinating. It's like 2 hours long. It's like it feels like they're always leaving something out. But then they just show like a title card that is like 2 months later, or like they just show like all the events have taken place in like 2 or 3 months. And you realize, like, holy shit, this has all just happened just on top of each other. Like there's a scene in this movie where, like, they're having, like, this diplomatic meeting where they're trying to settle the government, and the army just runs into there and holds them up at gunpoint, and he's trying to pretty much mediate between them and his army, who's now entered the room, and it's great performances all around, like, really electric directing and electric editing. I think it's a blast of a movie. It's a fairly accurate depiction of the Congo. I mean, it portrays in pretty close detail the kind of stuff that happens to when these colonies gain independence. There is just sort of this mad dash. Like, there's debates over culture, there's debates over politics, there's debates over race. It's really fully faceted and really interested. I highly recommend it. So yeah, that's really the only thing non-podcast I watched this week.
Your viewing choices have been growing more and more obscure as this podcast has gone on.
Well, this was something I had to watch for a class. So.
Oh.
And even then, I sometimes just like to pull like, this seems right up my alley. I'll watch that. Like, I just don't give a shit how obscure it is.
Well.
Maybe for the better.
All right. Well, I have no information to add to the saga of the history of international film this week because we're talking about the movie I watched in that class as our main focus today. So, which was Bicycle Thieves. But I do have a few things here. I completed the Three Colors trilogy with Three Colors Red.
Oh, hooray!
Yeah, nice.
And I like all three of these movies. They're all very, very interesting in very different ways. Red is really quite fascinating. And this is really the only one that you kind of have to watch in order. Like, you should definitely watch this one last because it at the end connects it to the other two movies in a very interesting way. And
is there a continuity, or is it like these are three stories connected?
They all take place like in the same world. They're not really connected, but there's they kind of tie it all together at the end, and like not in like a hackneyed kind of shoehorned in way. It's like it really is like kind of a very not subtle, but like very simple kind of totally sensible way to satisfying way to kind of just tie things all together at the end. And even before that, you have a fascinating movie. A very, very interesting kind of meditation on kind of voyeurism and fraternity and some different things. So the Three Colors trilogy, uncontroversially, it's great. Highly recommend it.
The more I hear about this trilogy, the more fascinating it sounds.
Yeah. I think you all would get a real kick out of it.
So what is the order? Is it so it's blue, white, and red?
Yeah.
Is the order that needed, like French flag?
Yeah, blue, white, red.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And I'd recommend viewing them in that order.
Let's see. Reed, have you seen anything of complete obscurity?
Well, I have a couple more things here.
Poetry doesn't count, so unfortunately not. Because let's be honest, the poetry podcast is lame as shit. Moving on.
You're right.
Somewhere.
No offense to all. I'm sure we've lost our huge demographic of poetry podcast lovers with that single comment. Good job, Reed. You've wiped out an entire section of our viewership there.
I'm sorry.
It's an untapped market.
I sincerely apologize to those viewers, especially if they do like Allen Ginsberg. But if they like the poet Sylvia Plath, I will personally recommend them for psychiatric evaluation.
Well, anyway, I do have a couple of other things quickly.
I moved subjects too quickly.
It's all right. As promised, I did watch Francois Truffaut's Day for Night, which I really enjoyed. It's very, very fun. Kind of a farcical romp about filmmaking. Truffaut himself plays the director of this kind of melodramatic film they're making. All the actors kind of get discrete storylines. It's honestly like, as I was watching it, I was thinking like, this is what I expected Nashville to be. So it's very, very fun, and it follows a bunch of different people that all get kind of separate arcs and satisfying stories, and it's a lot of fun. It's a very entertaining movie.
But it doesn't have any country songs.
No country songs.
Okay, so
that is striptease in cinema history.
Just classical music. And then I actually watched this a couple weeks ago, but somehow I forgot to talk about it. Francis Ford Coppola's The Conversation.
Ooh, you finally watched The Conversation.
I did. And
what'd you think?
I did like it. It's, I don't know, I was maybe just a little bit underwhelmed, but that movie does have kind of a great sense of paranoia and a lot of different things going on.
A really great Gene Hackman performance.
Oh, yes, outstanding.
I think that's some of his best work. I think about The Conversation pretty often. Like anytime I think of like not only like not really voyeurism but strict surveillance.
Yeah.
Especially considering the world we live in has become ever more connected, and there's always a sense that people are watching us no matter what we're doing.
No, strangely, it's a movie that's only gotten more relevant.
Yes, and like I think its use of those themes is really fascinating. Its use, like it has a really subtle use of film language. It's not like the typical Coppola. It's like, ooh, it's not The Godfather. It's really
the sound design in it is unbelievable.
Oh boy, the sound design scares the shit out of me every time. I was watching like the scene where he goes into like the bathroom and like flushes the toilet and the blood comes up. I was watching that like in the dark in like a really quiet room, and I just leaped out of my fucking chair while watching it.
Yeah.
As I do with a lot of movies.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my!
Well, you saw me when we saw like the film print of Jaws. That like when that jump scare happened, I leaped out of my fucking chair.
Yeah, well, that's one of the great jump scares. But yeah, the conversation very fascinating. A movie I'll probably return to quite a bit in the future.
Yeah, I'd be willing to revisit that too at some point. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Regardless, are we ready to talk Italian neorealism?
Let's do it. Oh, just one more thing. I have some hot news from the filmmaking world. Paul Thomas Anderson's new film, starring Daniel Day-Lewis, has started shooting.
Oscar talk.
I believe we can anticipate that by the end of the year.
Is there any sort of release date, or is it just like...
No. Production started. I think they're expecting to release it late 2017, Oscar season. Which, yeah.
Intriguing.
It's about the 1950s English fashion industry, so...
And that sounds fascinating.
Should be fun.
I was a P.T. Anderson.
That sounds very Boogie Nights-esque. So, that's good.
Well, so did Inherent Vice, and we all know how that turned out.
It'll be weird and opaque.
Yeah.
For better and for worse.
All right, well, yes, so let's talk some Italian neorealism, shall we?
We watched two, like, whenever you talk about Italian neorealism, like, these are two films that always come up. They're kind of the frontrunners of this genre. Not really genre, but sort of era of filmmaking.
Yeah.
Rome, Open City, directed by, who was it?
Roberto Rossellini.
And Bicycle Thieves, directed by De Sica.
Yes, Vittorio De Sica.
Both giants of cinema history, and both really interesting movies.
Yeah. I enjoyed both of these quite a bit.
I want to kind of give my little history of Italy.
Go right ahead.
In the 1920s came the rise of fascism via Benito Mussolini. He is kind of responsible for he pretty much nationalized the film industry, and this sort of idea of the film in Italy grew under the fascist wing, which is how it sort of formed. And in 1940, Italy joins World War II. In 1943, they lose that war and get divided up between Axis and Allied, the Germans on one side, the Americans, British, etc. on the other. And the war would continue until 1945. Germany surrenders, the war is over. But for those 2 years between 43 and 45, Italy was an active war zone. That was an active place of fighting. And the Italian neorealist era is pretty much the same machinery and a lot of the same people that were in the fascist machine coming forward and making films about the post-war period.
Yeah.
And so what you get is it's kind of the same tenets of film noir, where it's low budgets, not low lighting, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
but you also hear that you get non-professional actors. There's a real look at the common Italian, like the working class, the poor.
Yeah.
Like I think that's why there's a really big communist subplot in Bicycle Thieves, particularly.
I'd even say like even beyond like film noir, like they were just forced to the extreme of realism and like documentary style filmmaking just because they had no money. They had nothing to work with, and so their only real option was to kind of go into the streets and be as naturalistic as possible.
Yeah, shoot on location. Like when in Rome Open City, it's Rome. It's not a set. And what it creates is like this really somber and fascinating look at a portion of history, and particularly Italian history. Yeah. And like I've said this before, like movements like this rose all across Europe, and like there was German rebel film that also came out of this tradition. There's like all the same sort of thing occurred in its own format in all the different communist countries, but granted that was then when like the Soviets were coming and that influence came in, so those were different. So yeah, there was it's a real interesting history of rebel film. We are looking at the Italian segment of this, the most famous.
Yeah.
So is there a reason why like Italian neorealism was the most famous?
I mean, I have no idea. I could be just totally presumptuous and assume that the movies were better. But I really don't know.
I'm presumptuous in assuming that these sort of movements happen in the communist countries.
No. Yeah, I really don't know. But yeah, the Italian kind of post-war, like immediate post-war work, kind of just stands head and shoulders above the rest of that kind of similar work. So what do we want to talk about first here?
Let's see. Reed didn't watch Rome Open City, so do we just want to do Bicycle Thieves first, or?
Sure, why not? Let's talk Bicycle Thieves.
1948, De Sica, starring nobody you knew.
Yeah. So this is interesting because like Rome Open City was made like in 1945, like before the war was officially over. Yes. This is definitely more of a post-war movie. You can kind of tell they had like maybe just a little more money, a little more kind of leeway, and
it's more staged.
Yeah,
It's more deliberately plotted than Rome Open City.
Yeah. So plot: father is unemployed, gets a job, needs a bicycle for said job. Starts job, bicycle gets stolen. He enlists his son and some friends to help him track down this bicycle, and adventures ensue trying to track down his bicycle.
Like the actual the bicycle gets stolen is like, what is that, like 30 minutes in the bicycle gets stolen? It's like
something like that.
And like the rest of them is just them trying to find it and so forth.
I mean, this movie, the majority of it takes place over one day.
Yeah, over one day. This movie's fascinating. I think it is. It's similar to watching a Fritz Lang movie in that like it's kind of hard. It's hard to really distinguish scenes from each other. It kind of blends into each different scene. There's a real rhythm to it, right? Because in essence, what you're watching is a guy look for his bicycle. Yet it is like this just cinematic experience that brings you through the whole of Rome and all these different parts of this. You get to see all these different parts of the city. Like, you go to the wealthy restaurant, you go to, like, the mafia district in what is, like, a really great but heartbreaking scene.
Yeah.
I'm sure, like, what really, it's kind of, seeing this next to Rome Open City, which is a very dialogue-heavy movie.
Yeah.
Rome Open City. And you come to this, and this has some, like, silent movie elements.
Yeah.
Here and there. Like, some parts it's just, like, the final part of the movie pretty much takes place in silence.
Yeah. Well, we watched this in my class, and before we watched it, we saw a clip from another De Sica film called Umberto D, and there's a very long, just like silent portion in that clip that we watched where this old guy's maid is just kind of doing her morning routine, getting everything ready, and you just kind of hold on her, and just so much emotion is just done through like just the music and through her performance, and no dialogue is required, and that's something that comes across great in Bicycle Thieves too. The last moments of this movie are just so subtly heartbreaking without saying a word.
What I think also is like it's also a movie that still has like this great script in that like you have like the great scene where like the police officer meets with them and they're in the mafia community and they'll go, you got no witnesses. He's got 100. This happens all the time. This kind of like every once in a while you'll just get a look into this kind of corporate, corrupt to the core society that he finds himself victim to. Which also, this is a really cynical movie.
Yeah.
This is cynical to the core, and I really love that. Like, it has like no romanticism about it. Like this guy is just like from every single part of his life just like under attack. He can't get a job. When he does get a job, he needs a bike, so he has to sell his own damn sheets for the bike. Once he gets that bike, it's stolen. Once he finds the person who stole that bike, he's a part of a mafia community, and he pretty much just gets ambushed and he can't do anything about it. It's pretty much a man's agency being stripped away as the runtime goes on.
And also, just one thing I noticed, there's kind of a common thread between this and Robin Hood City in that they're both like quietly kind of coming of age stories until the final moments, and it like just kind of comes out full force. Like in the end, Bicycle Thieves just kind of is about like a kid realizing that his father is human, basically.
His father is human, and the world is out to get you.
Like some places translate the title of this movie as The Bicycle Thief, which I think Bicycle Thieves, plural, is a much better title because it foreshadows the end of this movie where the father briefly attempts to become a bicycle thief.
Yeah, well, the more you think about it, this is kind of like a story through the eyes of that kid. And we just sort of, the disillusionment of this man is seen through those eyes. Like, he's always there. Like, when he's kicked around by the mafia, he's there. When he's right in front of his fucking child, he steals the bike. It's just, like, dragged down from it by the community. It's, like, kicked around. They say, like, oh, he isn't worth it. Just give me my bike back. He just pretty much sees, like, an entire community disown his father, and it all goes right in front of him.
Yeah.
And they're just forced, like, to walk into the horizon with no future in mind.
And no bicycle.
And no bicycle.
Spoiler alert, they don't get the bike back.
Yeah, and it's, like, the filmmaking in this is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I like, there's, like, all, like, the clever planting that, like, the only way to survive in this society is to have a bike of some description because the public transportation is just worthless.
Yeah.
Which is a great touch.
I love that this movie was kind of made, in, like, it was, like, 1948, so it was a few years after the war had ended. But you're still very conscious of, like, you're seeing a society, like, still kind of struggling to rebuild itself.
Yeah, well, there's one point, like, the scene where he thinks Bruno is drowning, but it's just, like, some other people. That scene is right next to, like, this fascist-era monument. And you see, like, the fascist bas-relief, like, up in the corner. It's, like, it's this big thing that just dominating the frame. And it's kind of like, you can kind of interpret that as, like, this, like, that fascist society hasn't quite left yet. And so, yeah, like, of course, there's, like, the fascinating, like, communist kind of subplot you get in it, because, like, there's, like, a workers' rally he runs into near the beginning of the movie. There's, like, at one point he sits down and there's this big Soviet flag in the background.
Well, I think those guys that he kind of finds at that, like, little theater to kind of help him find the bike. I think those guys are like meant to be like union representatives or something.
Communist, sort of like that sort of thing. Like you do have like these political undertones to the movie. That the movie really isn't about that, but like they you can't really detach them from it because like that's the world that this movie exists in. Like you have like this movie starts with just like this mob of the unemployed like waiting for a job to be handed to them.
Yeah.
And that's inherently political. Okay. Do y'all have? I'm sort of exhausted. All of my.
Yeah.
Read. What hath you to say?
What have I to say? Actually, you go first.
Okay. Well, I really enjoy. I'm talking about this movie. I'm realizing that I really did like it quite a bit. While I was watching it, I was kind of not totally sure. Part of that may have been because I was watching it at like 9 a.m. in a class that I didn't want to be in. So, I would have much rather been in bed.
A class environment is always the worst way to watch a movie.
Yeah. But it was fine. And, talking about it, this movie is kind of a masterpiece. And I don't think I'm hardly the first person to say that. Bicycle Thieves is a great movie and just very, very rich in terms of just all the kind of subtle things that are going on.
It's very real. It's a movie that has like, and we're going to talk about this more, like Rome Open City. Like Bicycle Thieves has like a beautiful simplicity to it that's almost deceptive.
Yeah.
Like we tell you the plot, and it's like people say like, wait, that's it. The fuck are you trying to pull with me, boy? I'm trying to watch a movie here. But like, there's just such a rich tapestry that this movie is made from. Like, that is full of like the politics of the time and like the reality of the working class at that time, and just like the disillusionment of this man. That is really fascinating. Like, it's at least subtly a quite complex work.
Yeah.
Reed. I guess the bike is mine in this case. Okay, so as opposed to the floor.
Did you steal it?
I did steal it, and I also enjoyed this movie as well. Probably around the first half, like I thought it was a little slow because. For like 30 minutes, I was expecting it's like, okay, when is the bike gonna get stolen? And then once the bike is stolen, it's like, ooh.
Title drop.
Title drop. And then, I don't know. When they were in the market for trying to find the bike, there were I think there were some sequences after that were kind of slow. I thought.
That's the issue. Is that like at least for me, is like granted I can see somebody like going into this thing like, wait a minute, this is it, that's it. But like the fucking scene where like they're like after they're done looking at the market and they just kind of and it starts raining and they just kind of stand underneath the ledge of the building and all like the clergymen rush out next to like that's
German clergymen. German.
Well, you're right. They were speaking German.
Yeah. Although I think right after that, it did pick back up, and then you got some really, really nice portrayals of like poor house and the role of I'm going to assume the Roman Catholic Church.
Like, yeah, that's also a fascinating scene where he chases the old man into the church, and he's like running around, and the church people are saying, "What the fuck are you doing? This is a church." Yeah, this movie also has some of the most Italians to have ever Italianed. Like the son literally like looks over the bike and says, "There's a dent in it," and literally shakes his fist.
Because I was thinking that
I do remember that.
When my class watched that, we just burst out into laughter.
At some parts of this movie, I'm like, wait a minute, are they actually talking with their hands? Please, no.
All the stereotypes they told me were true.
Validation, no.
Yeah, but
it's made by Italians. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Yes.
No. Yeah, we could really just kind of dig into this movie for like another hour. Just that the scene where he and his son are at their restaurant and the son just kind of like looks at the wealthy family, just kind of just eating just inches away from them, and he just another kind of great unspoken moment.
That's like punctuated by like you'd have to make like $1 million a week, like 1,000 a week to eat like them. Or,
Yeah.
$1 million a week to eat like them.
Which, like, what is the exchange rate with Italian currency, by the way?
Granted, I don't know what inflation. I assume. God, when was the Marshall Act?
Well, Marshall Act was the 50s or 49.
That was so yeah, this is before that, so I don't know what the currency was like at the time. I think there was probably some inflation, I'd imagine.
It's not the Deutsche, it's not the world's most trusted 1920s Deutsche Mark currency.
Well, nothing's Weimar inflation.
No. But Bicycle Thieves, great. Yeah. All you've heard is true.
Yep. Do not be fooled by its simplicity. It is a complete work.
Yeah.
But regardless, let's move on to something that is it's a bit more complex.
I'd say so.
Rome Open City.
Rome Open City, 1945. So let me just say, first of all, so I first saw this movie about a year ago, a little bit more actually, in a class. Not a movie I probably would have picked up on my own.
Neither of these are for us.
I remembered liking it, but I was kind of hesitant about rewatching it. I was kind of putting it off. I was like, oh, I don't know. But I really enjoyed this movie. It's a very weirdly entertaining, but also just kind of very, very weirdly powerful piece of film.
Yeah, watching it, I was, granted, like, I really love Bicycle Thieves, obviously. I was kind of expecting a similar kind of movie from it, but this is very different. I mean, obviously, like, the budgetary restraints are a bit more obvious because they're making this literally during the war.
Well, it's a movie that, like, opens with, I think, like, documentary footage of actual Nazis.
I don't know.
I feel like my professor said that was like newsreel footage, like when we watched it. It doesn't.
I can't quite remember.
It doesn't really stand out, but
no. Granted, the rest of the movie is so documentary, and it kind of all kind of meshes, which is coming towards it. I remember kind of just mostly being underwhelmed by, because like unlike Bicycle Thieves, this is all very dialogue heavy, and I'm not as enthralled by that. But then I remember, like, there were some great little moments in this, like and great little moments of humanity too. Like, I always remember the image of like the priest in the statue store, and he's in front of the two statues, and one of them's naked, and he turns it away, and then turns the other like statue away. And there's like the scene with the man who's been paralyzed, and they're like saying, "Shut up, the Nazis are coming." And he's got like him and there's the band of sabotagist children who have bombs and guns stashed away in the apartment. And you have like the scene where like of the Nazis speaking to each other, speaking about if this man doesn't give me the information, it breaks the idea of German superiority.
Yeah.
And like it is a movie of like really great moments, but granted, I'm not too sure how well they stitch together.
Well, I honestly think this is a movie that can really only be looked at as like the sum of its parts, just because it was produced under such constraints, and you know they were barely able to like get their hands on any film stock to shoot it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, it can kind of feel cobbled together, and weirdly it's like simultaneously more lo-fi and more plot heavy than Bicycle Thieves.
Yeah, because Bicycle Thieves is more cinematic but also simpler. This has like a bunch of different characters. It's very dialogue heavy. it is one of those movies, like we were talking about this during Film Noir Week, where it's like if your interest kind of fades, you'd be like, wait a minute, where am I? What have I done?
Yeah.
Oh, no. But I see all like where it's been stitched together. I see like where the budget, like especially at the end, where like the Nazis have their little windowless underground lair where they torture people, and like you see where the budgetary restraints are, but it all feels authentic. You get the sense like this was made by people who lived through this. This was made by people who are really. It's oddly more sincere than Bicycle Thieves. Like it doesn't have this like crushing of human spirit at its core. It's about hope.
Mm.
It's about martyrdom, and it kind of feels like a propaganda movie. Like this idea, like this is I want us to. This is a message we want to give Italians who have been besieged by this war, and we want to give them hope that there is hope. Like this will end. We were told the war would not come to us, but yet it has. But we're going to survive.
Mm.
Like you see, we have these martyrs, we have these men, and look at this legacy that they've left us that we must fulfill. And that's really interesting. Yeah, what do y'all think?
Yeah, no, it is kind of a fascinating movie. It's so interesting that like, you know, this was just kind of done just in the immediate like kind of aftermath of all the fighting in Italy. You couldn't see the rubble of the city just all around them.
Fascinating.
I don't know. I really enjoy it. It's the beginning. I think it takes some time to get going, but once you kind of like thrown into this whole like underground like resistance and conspiracy and all that stuff, I think that's great.
Like the priest is a great character.
The priest is a Don Pietro. He's an incredible character.
I love him.
His whole relationship with the kids is great. And
like the role of the church in this is fascinating. How they're hosting this underground resistance organization, which is fascinating. Reed, what? Oh shit, I forgot.
I mean, when you say that, like a little blip went up. It's like, wait a minute, was it Pius XII that was Pope during World War II?
Wasn't there like the stories of like the Nazis and the Catholic Church cooperating and all that?
Or maybe just like the Catholic Church being negligent.
Well, granted, this is a case where I guess you could just argue like this is just an individual priest.
I don't look at this. I don't look at this as kind of commenting too strongly on like the Catholic Church as an institution. No, he's just the role of religion and of kind of just priests. In this time period, I think is more of what it's remarking upon.
Yeah, like its conversations are very general in regards to like especially when he speaks to the woman about like about like how Italy as a whole has sinned.
Yeah,
and like this is like we say the war. How could this happen to us? Yet what have we done? I guess like partially directly commenting on like the fascist period that came before this and just the complete. Because like the Mussolini's state was just as oppressive as Hitler's in some regards, and like that was just a failure of Italian society.
I mean, John, I guess I kind of understand why you would kind of view this as a little bit less interesting than Bicycle Thieves, but
I still like it. I just don't. I'm just a little bit more lukewarm towards it than I am Bicycle Thieves or. Mostly because I think like Bicycle Thieves is like has like a great simplicity to it, and that's also far more visually drawn filmmaking. Whereas like this is dialogue drawn, and that's not a bad thing. I can enjoy dialogue.
Yeah, no, I just was kind of surprised upon just the rewatch of this, just how much I really enjoyed it, and you know it's
a great script.
Yeah, it is a really good script. I think co-written by Federico Fellini, who would go on to do. Some other things. But yeah, I don't know, man. I was just kind of really just drawn into it. I think it's a great, like, kind of, you know, it's a loose kind of story, but it kind of solidifies as the movie goes on, and I think it really, really works. There's some great kind of performances in there. Some really interesting characters.
It has its focus where it needs to be. This priest, this sort of like little resistance group. Like it places its focus where it needs to go.
And even like kind of some of like the kind of characters on the sidelines, like that one German officer who's like, we said we were the master race. Like,
Yes.
what are we doing? Like,
that's fascinating. Like, there was just a lot of great little moments in this movie that are just like these showstoppers. Like, I think at one point they talk about like how, like, they said the war would never. Like, they talk about like how the war has come. They said the war would never come to us. Yet here it is. It's this great speech about sort of more, not really resistance but resilience that really stuck with me. So yeah, like it's. I'm not quite as sold on it as I am on Bicycle Thieves, but this is a fascinating movie.
yeah.
I think it fully deserves all the study it gets and all the viewings it gets in film schools and other places.
Yeah, I just think it's just so fascinating, and I don't know. I was kind of like caught off guard by it. I was not expecting to enjoy it quite this much.
It's a movie that kind of lulls you into like, old neorealist movie. I can see where the budget constraints are, but like then it'll just punch you with like a really great show-stopping speech or a really great little moment.
Yeah.
And it all comes together. So.
And another movie that just kind of culminates in just kind of a moment of coming of age in a way is the kids just kind of watch the priest get executed and then just kind of walk back to the city, and you kind of get the sense that like their whole future is before them, but what the fuck are they gonna do?
But also like not in like the Bicycle Thieves way. It's like we have no future. We walk into that horizon. This is far more like you have a future. These men stood before these men and they succeeded in some way. They broke the Germans in some way, shape, or form. Because here they are questioning like, are we the master race? What are we? And like it's a more hopeful movie in its own sort of roundabout way. Children still get to see their priest get shot, which is.
It sounds a little relevant.
Well,
I think. I don't think it is.
Not in the spotlight way, but.
You've kind of talked me into this, Tyler. This is like. The more I think about it, the more I do like it. It's uneven, it's shaggy, but like, you know what? I don't care about any of that. Its great moments are really great.
And it's so strange because like after I saw it the first time, I was like, okay, well that was good, but that's probably not a movie I'm ever going to watch again. But now I'm like, I'll probably return to it in the future.
I would be against that. You know what? With kind of a newfound perspective, I'd be willing to sit down and watch it again.
Yeah.
But alas. Other movies must come first.
Yes. I guess the time has finally come for the long-promised Carol Reed Week.
My namesake.
You go on Ancestry.com and see if you're related to Carol Reed in any way.
But that costs money.
Do it for the podcast.
Ooh. Anyway, Carol Reed, returning to the director of the acclaimed film The Third Man.
Yes, one of my favorite movies.
One of your favorites. And one that I very, very much enjoy. I was thinking Night Train to Munich.
That was one. I hear great things about the Odd Man Out.
Okay, yeah, that's the other one I was kind of thinking of as well.
So perfect. So we have 1940s Night Train to Munich and 1947's Odd Man Out.
Ooh. Oh boy.
Thus approach of Carol Reed Week.
Oh boy.
Also kind of an extension of possibly Film Noir Week.
Yes. I hope there's more another movie with some more fun on trains, I hope.
I hope so too. I think as we know, I like trains.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. So I think it's good week.
Good week.
Two good movies.
Also, I just want to preview a coming attraction here. I think our next few weeks are pretty well laid out because next week is going to be Carol Reed, and then after that, I think we're gonna have to record our Oscars thing if we want to do that.
Yep.
And then
talk about, boy, we're tired of La La Land.
And then, well, I'm not, but we'll talk about that.
I'm not.
And then the week after that, we're going to record our long anticipated. Well, maybe not. I think this is the first time I've teased it, but it's going to be our
we talked about it before.
our pod the Hack Fraud Show 1 year anniversary extravaganza.
Oh yes.
I'm hoping we can lure Mr. Warner back to the fold for that one.
I hope so. You never know with that boy.
I don't mean to put a dent, but Warner's first episode was
Episode 2.
Was the infamous Watchmen episode.
The origin of a meme that died way too late.
What, Blue Dawn?
Oh my god.
You were the one who wouldn't let it
The
die.
Blue Dong! I forgot about that! That haunted the early days of the podcast. No, we need to save this navel gazing for the actual episode.
I see. Well, what do we want to do the full, like... Do we want to do, like, where we review movies that week, or do we want to go full vignettes, year draft?
Well, no, I wasn't going to... I don't think we should do a year draft, but I think we should return to kind of the format we did for the Pixar episode, like you suggested.
We make our list.
Yeah, and that'll take up the pretty decent running time, I think. So we won't need to... That's why I'm thinking we can get Warner back for that one, because he won't have to watch anything for that week.
Yes. And he'll see about which movies he likes the most.
I'm wondering if he'll be able to make a list of 5 that he even likes.
I know. I think I'll be. Well, the strict things for this podcast, I think this is just a basic rule, is that it has to be stuff we had not seen before the podcast.
Yes. Well, we can kind of save this for later, but we're going to be building. We're each going to have our personal top 5 movies of movies we watched for this podcast. All right, well, that's in a few weeks. We'll discuss that more at length later. For next week, Odd Man Out and Night Train to Munich, Carol Reed, coming your way.
Are you going to watch them read?
Yes.
They're both short.
Oh, good. Okay.
Well, Odd Man Out is almost 2 hours, but...
Damn, that's okay.
Whatever.
You said almost 2 hours. It's not almost. It's not over 2 hours, so...
True. Yes, so we're good there. All right. Adieu. What's crackling? Okay. Yo, I was kind of thinking the other day, we should kind of plug our video chat service on the podcast because, we tried Skype, but we have found Google Hangouts to be a far more stable and versatile video calling service. We're not getting paid to say that. We're just fans.
Found better audio quality and more consistency in the great service that is Google Hangouts.
We're not getting paid to say that. We're just fans.
We're just fans. We're just fans.
Wing. I'm not getting paid to say that. I'm just a fan. A fan and a very happy customer.
Yep. Uh-oh.
What?
John froze.
Oh no, we lost a John.
John, come back.
Oh.
I made the mistake of trying to do a Google search.
You can never do that. It must have been right after the Oscars, and yet I don't think we talked about the Oscars on that episode. We may have recorded it before the Oscars actually happened. I think we may have to record a bonus episode talking about the Oscars after they happen, but...
It was an uneventful Oscars.
What are you talking about? Mad Max won all those awards. John
It didn't win Best Picture, man. What the fuck am I supposed to do?